Hey everyone. So, one of the big names in crypto, which has been heard from quite a lot over the last week or so, is none other than Coinbase. Perhaps the most well-known crypto exchange and crypto company, let's face it, out there. Now, Coinbase is currently in the news for rescinding job offers to recent hires. So basically, these poor people have found themselves out of a job before they've even been able to start it. And that has resulted in some, well, I guess deservedly, bad publicity for Coinbase. It's worth pointing out, though, that Coinbase isn't the only company doing this, and the other company that springs to mind is none other than Gemini, a fellow American exchange, which has also been forced to lay people off as a result of the bear market and the downturn in crypto, and of course in the wider world of finance as well. Now, Coinbase, it's fair to say, is probably, I guess, the most recognizable name in crypto, and certainly the most recognizable name to people either new to crypto or outside it. And it's perhaps best known as the first big crypto exchange to go public. That happened last year. There was a lot of fanfare around Coinbase's IPO. Its shares have dropped pretty considerably since then, which isn't kind of much of a surprise given the climate that we're in. And Coinbase's recent set of earnings report came out. We actually covered it in a video on our main channel a few weeks ago, and those were predictably bad as well. So it is kind of a rough time for Coinbase at the moment. But it has to be said that it is still a massive, massive company. It is still one of the biggest and best known names in all of crypto. And I personally think we haven't seen the last of Coinbase by any means. These are certainly difficult times for it, and let's face it, lots of other exchanges as well. But Coinbase, I believe, is here to stay, certainly for the time being. Anyhow, why am I telling you this? Why am I talking about Coinbase? Well, everything that's been going on with the company in recent weeks has put me in mind of this rather brilliant book that I read a few months ago. Now, I've talked about this in posts before, but I thought I'd give a little video summary of it for you. And, basically, I guess the first thing to say is that I highly, highly recommend it. Jeff John Roberts is a chap who specializes in both technology and law. So he covers that rather interesting intersection of those two industries. Covers subjects such as cryptocurrency, patent reform, blockchain technology, hacking and privacy in the age of social media for Fortune. He's also written for Bloomberg Businessweek and the New York Times, and he's appeared on various august television channels as well. Now, this basically tells the story of how Brian Armstrong and Fred Ursum created Coinbase from a plucky little startup in Silicon Valley, one of these that came out of the Y Combinator sort of startup incubator. And yeah, it tells the really incredible story of how it rose to become the massive, massive and ever-growing company that it is today. Now, it also, in the telling of it, talks interestingly about the birth of crypto, because the two subjects are, as you can imagine, inextricably linked. Coinbase's history is very much tied up with the wider history of crypto. So the book functions really not only as an exploration of Coinbase itself and the personalities behind it. You get some really great information on the likes of Brian and Fred and some of the other people who work there as well, and just how much they had to sacrifice in order to make it the success that it is. And this is something I think that I always find just incredibly fascinating when reading about companies like this, these great big success stories, is the amount of hard work and graft and long hours, late nights that has to go into making a company like this, because sometimes it certainly feels to me as though Coinbase almost kind of appeared overnight and was all of a sudden this great big exchange that everyone used and everyone was familiar with. But as this book tells you, there's actually a lot more to the story than that. So it's fascinating from that point of view. It also gives a fascinating insight into the early days of crypto and how it was crucially perceived by many outside the industry, some of whom wrote it off and some of whom embraced it and made a lot of money. And also, as I say, it gives some fascinating insights into the people behind the project, and you meet a lot of other interesting people in the crypto space as well. It's also highly, highly readable. It's on the short side, really. It's a little over 200 pages. It finishes up around 2020. So we don't get that sort of, we don't get all of the sort of massive recent bull market and of course the recent downturn. But it's still very, very relevant, still up to date, and still very much worth a read. So Kings of Crypto by Jeff John Robert, folks. If you're looking for a little light but very, very interesting reading, I couldn't recommend it highly enough.